Welcome back to open source. Okay, let's talk about FTX. Let's talk about its impact on retail investors. Because, the FTX story got a lot of mainstream attention and it spooked a lot of retail investors. And you were getting into that before the break. Is this warranted? Like, do you think that, do you think it was fair? Do you think that the media representation was fair?
No, honestly, I don't think so. And I think it's for a lot of the reasons that we've kind of talked about and touched on so far today. It's because that's not really the ethos of the entirety of the space. The ethos of the space is that you should have custody over your assets and you should be able to own them and have custody over them. And that's the exact opposite of what centralized exchanges do, right? Centralized exchanges like FTX make it easier, but in exchange of that ease of use, you take on other risks in other forms, right? Counterparty risk, things like that. And so I think and I believe that most people should custody their assets, or they should use like registered institutions, places that your money is safe, places that are regulated, right? Like Coinbase. Coinbase is a great place to keep your money. They're regulated by multiple governments all over the world. They have investors to answer to. They put out reports every quarter and about where your assets are and what they're doing with those assets. So there are better places than others if you don't want to take on the risk of custodying your assets yourself. But there's ways to mitigate those risks. And so I think that painting this broad stroke about FTX and making it seem like the entire industry is bad, where actually a lot of the things that the industry pushes for, the crypto and digital asset industry as a whole, is actually anti-FTX and actually against a lot of the things that they stood for. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to paint that broad brushstroke.
Okay, so here's something that I learned. So my last news forum television series was called Daily Drop. We did 40 episodes, Web3, blockchain, crypto. And there's a lot of people who don't know anything about crypto. There's still people who, believe it or not, don't know what Bitcoin is. And so I think this is a bit problematic, right? Because they're still trying to figure out what crypto even is. And then the only information they have is through this FTX story, this guy who's like a junior Bernie Madoff. But I think that, when you talk about self-custodying, all these things, people don't know how to hold assets. Most people, I think, they know they have a bank account, they have money in that bank account, and now there's this crypto thing, and there's a bit of a gap there. Like, what would you say to those people?
Yeah, I think education is the biggest issue in the space.
Mhm.
If you really think about it on a macro level, this entire industry is 14 years old at most.
Mhm.
So like from the inception of Bitcoin to today, and we've already come so far in just a small 14 years. I mean, think about where we were just in technology in general, right? Think about maybe the birth of the internet and like the origin of like TCP/IP and some of the original like internet protocols that gave us what we now think of as the internet. Think from like the 90s to like the early 2000s. 14 years, there was not a whole bunch of growth that had happened, right? People were still using broadband, speeds were really slow. And then once, the quality of the internet got to a point where we could get Web 2 and applications that we saw in Web 2, right? Think your social media networks, streaming, YouTube, Netflix, Facebook, Instagram, those things, right? We had to get a certain point of the internet speed in order to get there, right? We had to have pictures that could load fast enough. If you guys, I'm sure a lot of people and a lot of viewers are going to remember days where, you'd have to sit there and wait 5 minutes for a video to buffer, right? I think we're still in that stage in the blockchain industry where we're still waiting for blockchains to get a little bit faster, a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier to use. The user interface is still getting a little bit better. And so I think we're in that 2000 to 2005 range right now,
Mhm.
where as soon as we hit this like kind of critical mass and we have a little bit better user interface and experiences, the applications are going to take off, and we're going to see applications that are going to make everybody's lives easier. Things like remittances and payments, being able to send cross-border payments at instantaneous speed with instantaneous settlement, right? No more T-2 in order to make sure the wires have cleared and things like that. There's going to be
Mhm.
applications like gaming. There's going to be new social infrastructures. There's going to be so many applications that are unlocked, and but
Okay,
the
let me
issue and the barrier to entry is education.
I understand. So we're talking about education. We only have a minute left, so we'll just have to have like a sort of concise answer here. But there's still an optics problem in crypto, though, right? Like, let's be honest, right? So what can we do to change that perception? I know it's education, but specifically what?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great resources. I think one of the place that I always send people is Coinbase. I think Coinbase does a great job of educating people about how some of these different applications work. What are the use cases that people are really excited about? How it works, whether it makes sense for you to keep your money in a Coinbase, where I think Coinbase essentially functions like a crypto bank. And they do some really great stuff there. But I think on the other side, there's a lot of education to be done about how to be safe with your funds, how to do things in a really articulate way where you don't have to be risky, you don't have to take on all of this risk, and you don't have to, be at the whims of someone like FTX or someone like
Yeah,
SBF, where you can
right.
get all the
Well,
benefits without taking
I
on a lot of the
I
risk. So I think
understand.
Coinbase is a great resource for people.
So Coinbase is a good one, and we'll discuss more after the break on open source.